Day 10 Patriarchs, Genesis 20 through 21, Job 9 through 10, Proverbs 2 verses 6 through 8. Let's begin. Genesis 20, 21. Abraham advanced from there into the southern land, and he lived between Kadesh and Shur. And he sojourned in Gerar. And he said about his wife Sarah, "She is my sister." Therefore Abimelech, the king of Gerar, sent for her and took her. Then God came to Abimelech through a dream in the night, and he said to him, "Lo, you shall die because of the woman that you have taken. For she has a husband." In truth, Abimelech had not touched her, and so he said, "Lord, would you put to death a people, ignorant and just? Did he not say to me, 'She is my sister,' and did she not say, 'He is my brother'? In the sincerity of my heart, and the purity of my hands I have done this." And God said to him, "And I know that you have acted with a sincere heart. And therefore I kept you from sinning against me, and I did not release you to touch her. Now therefore, return his wife to the man, for he is a prophet. And he will pray for you, and you will live. But if you are not willing to return her, know this, you shall die a death, you and all that is yours." And immediately Abimelech, rising up in the night, called all his servants. And he spoke all these words in their hearing, and all the men were very afraid. Then Abimelech called also for Abraham, and he said to him, "What have you done to us? How have we sinned against you, so that you would bring so great a sin upon me and upon my kingdom? You have done to us what you ought not to have done." And remonstrating him again, he said, "What did you see, so that you would do this?" Abraham responded, "I thought to myself, saying, Perhaps there is no fear of God in this place, and they will put me to death because of my wife. Yet, in another way, she is also truly my sister, the daughter of my father, and not the daughter of my mother, and I took her as a wife. Then, after God led me out of my father's house, I said to her, You will show this mercy to me. In every place, to which we will travel, you will say that I am your brother." Therefore, Abimelech took sheep and oxen, and men servants and women servants, and he gave them to Abraham. And he returned his wife Sarah to him. And he said, "The land is in your sight. Dwell wherever it will please you." Then to Sarah he said, "Behold, I have given your brother 1,000 silver coins. This will be for you as a veil for your eyes, to all who are with you and wherever you will travel. And so, remember that you were taken." Then when Abraham prayed, God healed Abimelech and his wife, and his handmaids, and they gave birth. For the Lord had closed every womb of the house of Abimelech, because of Sarah, the wife of Abraham. Then the Lord visited Sarah, just as he had promised, and he fulfilled what he had spoken. And she conceived and gave birth to a son in her old age, at the time that God had foretold to her. And Abraham called the name of his son, whom Sarah bore for him, Isaac. And he circumcised him on the 8th day, just as God had instructed him, when he was 100 years old. Indeed, at this stage of his father's life, Isaac was born. And Sarah said, "God has brought laughter to me. Whoever will hear of it will laugh with me." And again she said, hearing this, who would believe Abraham, that Sarah breastfed a son, to whom she gave birth, despite being elderly? And the boy grew and was weaned. And Abraham made a great feast on the day of his weaning. And when Sarah had seen the son of Hagar the Egyptian playing with her son Isaac, she said to Abraham, "Cast out this woman's servant and her son. For the son of a woman's servant will not be heir with my son Isaac." Abraham took this grievously, for the sake of his son. And God said to him, "Let it not seem harsh to you concerning the boy and your woman servant. In all that Sarah has said to you, listen to her voice. For your offspring will be invoked in Isaac. Yet I will also make the son of the woman's servant into a great nation, for he is your offspring." And so Abraham arose in the morning, and taking bread and a skin of water, he placed it upon her shoulder, and he handed over the boy, and he released her. And when she had departed, she wandered in the wilderness of Beersheba. And when the water in the skin had been consumed, she set aside the boy, under one of the trees that were there. And she moved away and sat in a distant area, as far as a bow can reach. for she said, I shall not see the boy die. And so, sitting opposite her, he lifted up his voice and wept. But God heard the voice of the boy. And an angel of God called to Hagar from heaven, saying, What are you doing, Hagar? Do not be afraid. For God has heeded the voice of the boy, from the place where he is. Rise up. Take the boy and hold him by the hand. For I will make of him a great nation. And God opened her eyes. And seeing a well of water, she went and filled the skin, and she gave the boy to drink. And God was with him. And he grew, and he stayed in the wilderness, and he became a young man, an archer. And he lived in the desert of Paran, and his mother took a wife for him from the land of Egypt. At the same time, Abimelech and Phicol, the leader of his army, said to Abraham, God is with you in everything that you do. Therefore swear by God that you will do no harm to me, and to my posterity, and to my stock. But according to the mercy that I have done to you, you will do to me and to the land, to which you have turned as a newcomer. And Abraham said, I will swear. And he reproved Abimelech because of a well of water, which his servants had taken away by force. And Abimelech responded, I do not know who did this thing, but you also did not reveal it to me, nor have I heard of it, before today. And so Abraham took sheep and oxen, and he gave them to Abimelech. And both of them struck a pact. And Abraham set aside 7 female lambs from the flock. Abimelech said to him, What purpose have these 7 female lambs, which you have caused to stand separately? But he said, You will receive 7 female lambs from my hand, so that they may be a testimony for me, that I dug this well. For this reason, that place was called Beersheba, because there both of them did swear. And they initiated a pact on behalf of the well of oath. Then Abimelech and Phicol, the leader of his army, rose up, and they returned to the land of the Palestinians. In truth, Abraham planted a grove in Beersheba, and there he called upon the name of the Lord God Eternal. And he was a settler in the land of the Palestinians for many days. Job 9:10. And Job, responding, said, Truly, I know that it is so, and that man cannot be justified compared with God. If he chooses to contend with him, he is not able to respond to him once out of 1,000 times. He is understanding in heart and mighty in strength, who has resisted him and yet had peace. He has moved mountains, and those whom he overthrew in his fury did not know it. He shakes the earth out of its place, and its pillars tremble. He commands the sun and it does not rise, and he closes the stars as if under a seal. He alone extends the heavens, and he walks upon the waves of the sea. He fashions Arcturus, and Orion, and Hyades, and the interior of the south. He accomplishes great and incomprehensible and miraculous things, which cannot be numbered. If he approaches me, I will not see him. If he departs, I will not understand. If he suddenly should question, who will answer him? Or who can say, Why did you do so? God, whose wrath no one is able to resist, and under whom they bend who carry the world. What am I then, that I should answer him and exchange words with him? And if I now have any justice, I will not respond, but will beseech my judge. And if he should listen to me when I call, I would not believe that he had heard my voice. For he will crush me in a whirlwind and multiply my wounds, even without cause. He does not permit my spirit to rest, and he fills me with bitterness. If strength is sought, he is most strong. If equity and judgment, no one would dare to give testimony for me. If I wanted to justify myself, my own mouth will condemn me. If I would reveal my innocence, he would prove me depraved. And if I now became simple, my soul would be ignorant even of this, and my life would weary me. There is one thing that I have said, both the innocent and the impious he consumes. If he scourges, let him kill all at once, and not laugh at the punishment of the innocent. Since the earth has been given into the hand of the impious, he covers the face of its judges. For if it is not him, then who is it? My days have been swifter than a messenger, they have fled and have not seen goodness. They have passed by like ships carrying fruits, just like an eagle flying to food. If I say, By no means will I speak this way. I change my face and I am tortured with sorrow. I have dreaded all my works, knowing that you did not spare the offender. Yet if I am also just as impious, why have I labored in vain? If I had been washed with snow-like waters, and my hands were shining like the cleanest thing, yet you would plunge me in filth, and my own garments would abhor me. For even I would not answer a man who were like myself, nor one who could be heard with me equally in judgment. There is no one who could both prevail in argument, and in placing his hand between the two. Let him take his staff away from me, and let not the fear of him terrify me. I will speak and I will not fear him, for in fearfulness I am not able to respond. My soul is weary of my life. I will release my words against myself. I will speak in the bitterness of my soul. I will say to God, do not be willing to condemn me. Reveal to me why you judge me this way. Does it seem good to you, if you find fault with me and oppress me, the work of your own hands, and assist the counsel of the impious? Do you have bodily eyes? Or, just as man sees, will you see? Are your days just like the days of man, and are your years as the times of humans? So that you would inquire about my iniquity and examine my sin. And you know that I have done nothing impious, yet there is no one who can deliver from your hand. Your hands have made me and formed me all around, and in this way, do you suddenly throw me away? Remember, I ask you, that you have fashioned me like clay, and you will reduce me to dust. Have you not extracted me like milk and curdled me like cheese? You have clothed me with skin and flesh. You have put me together with bones and nerves. You have assigned to me life and mercy, and your visitation has preserved my spirit. Though you may conceal this in your heart, yet I know that you remember everything. If I have sinned, and you have spared me for an hour, why do you not endure me to be clean from my iniquity? And if I should be impious, woe to me, and if I should be just, I will not lift up my head, being drenched with affliction and misery. And because of pride, you will seize me like a lioness, and having returned, you torment me to an extraordinary degree. You renew your testimony against me, and you multiply your wrath against me, and these punishments make war within me. Why did you lead me out of the womb? If only I had been consumed, so that no eye would ever see me. I should have been as if I had not been transferred from the womb to the tomb. Will not my few days be completed soon? Release me, therefore, so that I may lament my sorrows a little. Before I depart and return no more to a land that is dark and covered with the fog of death. A land of misery and darkness, where the shadow of death, and nothing else but everlasting horror, dwells. Proverbs 2 verses 6-8. For the Lord bestows wisdom, and out of his mouth, prudence and knowledge. He will preserve the salvation of the righteous, and he will protect those who walk in simplicity, serving the paths of justice, and guarding the ways of sanctity.